Administrator the funding during the 2009-10 budget process. Our pension obligation bonds and our COPs are on target to meet the amortization scheduled up for the debt service payments on these debts. In the county retirement contributions, the Retirement Ad Hoc Committee will be reviewing any potential unfunded liability, and the county's retirement contribution rate set by the Retirement Board. Impacts will be reported back to the board actually in March. Also in April, the Retirement Board and the County Board of Supervisors will be having a workshop, and the board and the Retirement Board may want to review assumptions in amortization setup, our funding agreement, the 5-year smoothing methods, etc. And also last year, if you recall, I might want to point out to the board that we had a debt service obligation payment. This started back, for the new board members' information, back in 2005. There was an underfunding of the debt service payment for our pension obligation bonds. It was a $4.1 million underfunding. We amortized that over 5 years, and it was approximately $839,000 payment each year. Last year, there was discussion at the board level during the mid-year update, or I think third quarter update, that we were actually ahead of schedule in paying that debt payment fund off, or that debt service fund obligation off. And there was a decision to make whether or not we were going to be continuing on with the amortization for the 5 years through 2008 or 9, or, not. We decided to be prudent and fiscally prudent here, to decide to go ahead with the amortization as set up, and as this payment flows through the retirement system and is through the salaries through the retirement system, it did help in offsetting some of the county contributions. Okay, so this year, at the end of 2008-09, this payment is now going to be done. So any potential savings that we may have may offset any anticipated potential increases in county contributions that our retirement administrator is going to come back to you in March and talk to you about. So just keep that in mind, that we may have that offsetting cost against any retirement increase that we could have. So if there isn't any questions further, I just wanted to summarize it up. I've kind of skipping to the very last page on page 7, I've kind of put this in the summary of the variances listed above by function. The non-departmental revenue, under realizing revenue, is coming in with a shortfall projection of $1.6 million. I'm rounding this off. Criminal justice departments are projecting to be over budget by $1,022,808. Internal support departments are coming in under budget, $80,588. Health and Human Services departments are projected to be over budget, $1,776,015, including mental health. Resource agency departments are projected to be over budget by $359,190, and that's mostly due to planning and building. General government departments are projected to be under budget for $68,223. The total subtotal variance of the projected shortfall is $4.7 million over budget, but if you take out the contingency funds that we have in budget unit 9991, your total variance is projected to be over budget by $4.1 million. There's a $10 typo there, but it's 4182712. Is there any questions at this time?
In my opinion, that kind of says it all. I don't see any questions here. Thank you. That concludes your part, Jennifer.
This concludes my part of the presentation.
It's very laid out. I don't see where it
I might want to point out, just, everything that was said in this bullet point was projected in the in your worksheets.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah. Okay. Allison, where do we go from there? Now we know where we are. Let's find out where we're going.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to note for the record that the press received that correspondence first.
Yes.
Before anyone else.
No, we've got this. Let's give it. For the public.
Okay, so we will now try and pull this together and show how it all fits together and what actions need to be taken here. And you all have the color copies of this that were handed out. I would point out, for those of you who read your binder from cover to cover, that the D and E were kind of reversed. The revenue, the expenditure reductions were put in E when they should have been put in D. But this replaces it because it has the latest fiscal information. So this is the part of the budget workshop that focuses on 2008-9 reductions. And so in this presentation so far, we have updated the 2008-9 revenue projections and forecast revenues for 2009-10. And that's what Meredith was doing earlier. We have reported on the state budget crisis. It's hard to just call it a budget. I think it's just a budget crisis. And for both years, since they've combined that, and then provided the 2008-9 second quarter report and projected it through the end of the fiscal year. So in the process of balancing the budget for 2008-9, one of the things to remember is that we actually were reducing the budget up front before we even presented the proposed budget to the board and before the board adopted the final budget. And I think when you kind of add that all together with what we're facing now, it's a pretty stark statement about the economic times that we're in and the impact it's had on the budget. So just a reminder, in case department heads have forgotten the drama around producing the budget in the first place, we did a 6% cut in the assigned net county cost and asked departments to submit at that level to tell us what the impacts would be, and then in the process of negotiating the proposed budget, some portion of that cut was in fact left in that budget. So that was about $2.4 million right up front. Then we also asked the departments to absorb the increases in wages and benefits, mostly through salary savings, and that was about $4.8 million worth. So up front in the budget, there was about $7 million that just kind of got crammed in and absorbed in what was available at that point. And so there were reductions that occurred up front. The other thing we did in producing that budget, and I think it's instructive to remember it because we're just about to embark on this next budget year as well. So in this case, we suspended the vehicle replacement fund for 2008-9. We utilized the Mill Creek Dam's insurance reimbursement, if you'll recall, for water projects, and then we put the balance of it in the contingency fund. Before the Mill Creek Dam insurance reimbursement, our contingency fund, I believe, was $35,000. Believe it or not, it's actually been lower, but that's far below what one normally would want in a contingency fund. And then we held the line on capital projects and fixed assets, and no new positions were added.
You know, for the public too, I might add though that also the county has a $1.9 million general fund reserve.
That's true. That's later in the.
I don't want the public to think that the county is operating on
No.
no dollars at all.
No, there is a general reserve for the county that's $1.9 million. It is below our target, but we do have that reserve. The contingency reserve tends to be whatever amount we end up with after we've put together the rest of the budget. So that's about another $1 million that we were either getting in terms of unanticipated revenues or in suspending the vehicle purchases. And then in revenues for this last year,